Okay, welcome everyone. This is two sides of an AI coin, and Emmanuel, you can pass the slide. So today, Emmanuel and Derek will be presenting the webinar, but just before I hand over to them, let's do some housekeeping. First thing is the webinar audio. So if you're listening to me well, then you have no problem with your audio, but if your connection is a little bit unstable, you can always dial in via phone. And here's how. You can pass one more, Emmanuel. Second one, we'll have an amazing discussion today, so you could have some questions. And if you have any questions, you can post them in the question poll here. And the third thing, Emmanuel, this session is being recorded, so links to the recording and the presentation will be provided later. And now, just for a little audience breakdown, we have people from a lot of places here today with us, but 50% of them is from US and UK, so nice share of people from US and UK. Also, some people from Ireland and Canada as well. Hello, everyone. We're speaking from Ireland. And for the industry breakdown, we also have a nice mix of industry here. Most of them are for BPO, financial services, and technology. So yeah, nice to see everyone here. Hope we have a great discussion, learn a lot today. Okay, so now hand over to you, Derek and Emmanuel.
Good afternoon or good morning, everybody, wherever you're dialed in from. You're very welcome to our webinar on a very topical item, how artificial intelligence has already affected the contact center strategy and thinking, and also with the introduction and the rapid deployment of generative AI, how that's going to change our view of the world. I want to introduce you to my colleague, Emmanuel. Emmanuel joined us as VP of Product back in June, but prior to that, he was working closely with us in building out our AI offer as it stands at the moment, right? My name is Derek. I'm CEO and founder of Sentient, the parent company of Scorebuddy. So very welcome today, and I'm going to hand over to Emmanuel now to take us into the agenda.
Good morning, good evening to everyone. Thanks for attending our webinar. So we're going to cover mainly 4 points today. Where is AI today? Where is it in the contact center? What about ChatGPT? We're all talking about that. We're all hearing about that. We're all reading about that. So what is it about, and what are the possible concerns with it? A third part we'll address is why and how do we keep human in the loop for this AI growth. It's very important to reflect on this. And the last point would be to try and explain in more pragmatic ways how you can introduce AI in your own contact center for your own QA process. So I think we have a little poll first, Mariana. If you want to ask a question, do any of you use AI already in your work? And I look forward to see your result. I expect to see some answers. I'd love to see what we get.
Okay, just giving a few more seconds so everyone can vote. But yeah, we have mixed answers. So okay, I'm gonna close the poll now. This is the result. So 56% not yet, but still considering some of them, and 44% yes, they already use.
We're in the 50-50 type of poll. I expected a little bit more people will be using it yet, but it's interesting to see it's not always to the level of the hype that we see, and we'll talk about that a little bit longer, okay? So let's say 50-50 for the rest of the conversation. It's interesting. The first thing we're going to talk about is we're going to try and reflect on why are we all talking about AI. It seems so common to do a webinar about AI. It's good to remember why we are all talking about it. It's quite interesting. So the first thing is AI is a technology that's really evolving quickly, really quickly. If you go back in time, it was kind of invented in 1956 as a research concept. Would computers be able to behave like human and be as intelligent, etc.? And it evolved to all that we know today. We've discovered the Alexa of this world, the Google AI, etc. Another way to look at how fast it's moving is to look at one aspect of AI, which is a bit more technical. It's looking at the parameters of large language models. Parameters are what the models use to tune themselves. So you could see them on the levels you can bring up and bring down to basically tune yourself until you are almost right. And these things, if you count in millions of parameters, I think BERT was the first LLM model in 2018, and it had something like 300 million parameters. It sounds good already. A few years after, GPT-3 arrived, 170,000 millions. Okay, so we're in the hundreds of billions parameters. Moving to Palm in 2022, which was last year, Palm is the Google kind of version of all this. We had 500,000 million parameters. And now GPT-4 released this year has 1 million, which is 1 trillion parameters. And God knows what Palm 2 will have when it's announced properly. So what does that mean? That means there's a lot of parameters. It's really growing very fast. But if you look back at what Geoffrey Hinton said, Geoffrey Hinton is the kind of one of the father of AI. He recently resigned from Google, kind of out of fear of what the AI is becoming in his view. And that's the reason officially claimed. And he had a kind of humoristic quote a year ago, looking at the fast evolution of a large language model like GPT-3. He said basically we could answer all the questions about life, universe, and everything in just 4 trillion parameters, and we had 1 today. So yeah, it's advancing very fast. Don't take that quote to the letter, but it's advancing very, very fast. Okay. So another reason why we're talking about AI is that the business is exploding. It's just billions of dollars are being made or forecast to be made out of AI. If you look at this Statista chart, it says that I think in 2025, we will generate worldwide about $400,000 million. Okay, so I'll let the expert in this room tell me how many billions or trillions of dollars that is. It's huge. So the business aspect of AI isn't to be neglected. It is generating a lot of money. Another reason we are all talking about AI is ChatGPT. Okay, so what is ChatGPT bringing? It's bringing AI to the masses at an awareness level. Everybody knew about AI. Everybody saw the science fiction movies and all this stuff. But what ChatGPT is bringing to the kind of a human awareness is that it can really look human now. It feels, it looks human, and it's making all the headlines. So that's one reason we're all talking about AI, is that they're all talking about it. Let's not forget that AI also follows what Gartner calls a hype cycle. So Gartner is a very good way of analyzing new technology. It has defined what they call a hype cycle, which basically says most new promising technology go through a cycle where they generate over expectancies to then fall and then plateau to actually a delivery level. Okay, and if you look at what generative AI is doing in the eyes of Gartner, Gartner believes generative AI, like large language models, will soon reach the peak of their hype. So we're not far, according to Gartner, to the maximum hype around ChatGPT. But another thing that Gartner says as well is tiny in the color coding that they use, but it's very interesting. They say that in generative AI will actually reach its plateau, which is delivering far below the hype of expectancy, but delivering reality, delivering real results in real production systems. And they say generative AI will reach that level in 2 to 5 years, which is the shortest, one of the shortest cycle Gartner is defining for this new technology. So yeah, we are in a hype. We are surfing that hype. We are all at the top of that hill looking at all the good things that ChatGPT and all this AI can do. We will all go down that hill with kind of disappointing reality, but we're all coming to reality, and ChatGPT is there. It will be there to stay. Another reason why we are talking about AI is that it's here. Like it's here today in all our contact centers, in all your contact centers. AI is here. It's here in different manners. It's helping self-service for customers. So customers can now have service done automatically by chatbots. The level of deflection, so chatbots are used to deflect calls from real agent to machine so that you can grow your contact center activity without growing commensurately the number of agents. Okay, so that's the idea of chatbots. The level of success is really diverse. Okay, so we see anything from people claiming 90% call deflection to people more realistic saying they do 10-15% deflection. I see a lot of stats on this in the industry. I think a good call would be to say 30-35% call deflection could be a good average across all industries. I stand to be corrected by anyone who has better or anyone that has worse, but an average would be a good call on this. The second way AI is used today is an agent assist use case. Agent assist is about surfacing an understanding of the customer problem to serve to the agent this time a better solution and faster that they can then operate for and serve back to the customer. So it's helping the agent do a better job faster, often supported by RPA, robotic process automation things, which sometimes themselves have some AI component. The idea there is the customer doesn't see the AI, the agent uses it to answer quicker and better. Another area where AI is already used is voice transcription. We all know about voice transcription. We all know there are many different models, AI models that use that, that do that job. And what voice transcription does, for whoever has not heard of it, it basically transcribes the voice call into a text that can then be humanly searched, analyzed by machine, etc., etc. Probably the first area where AI became really mainstream in contact centers is sentiment analysis. So that was probably one of the first use cases used in survey analytics and some level of customer interaction analytics, basically to detect, is that customer happy or not about this thing or that thing. A newer area of application for AI is workforce management. So some workforce management systems use AI to better predict what workload will be required at a certain stage based on analyzing patterns, etc., of present and historical load. This type of technology is not that new. It's been used in telecoms for a little while to predict network capacity, etc. It's not used for workforce capacity, and I think it's probably working well. And the last area, which is probably the most interesting for today, is the conversational analytics, meaning AI can analyze first the customer side of the conversation. Why is the customer calling? What is trending in those contact reasons, and what do they correlate with, so that we can understand the root cause to those contact center calls. Okay, and maybe people can fix the business problem behind it and reduce that number of calls. Another way it can be used is by analyzing also the agent side of the conversation to then come up with compliance problems. And if an agent said or did not say that, following or not a customer request, then possibly there's a number of criteria that can be met or not at the QA level. So AI is here today and can do all these things. Okay. So what's the big deal? ChatGPT is coming, and it's like we never heard of AI before. So what is the big fuss, and what is really ChatGPT about, and what is it bringing to our businesses? So first, let's look at what is it. So ChatGPT first is a chat application. Okay, it's an OpenAI chat application that uses OpenAI's large language models. There's other large language models. We're not going to go through them today. We're going to use the word ChatGPT loosely to describe all these LLMs, large language module, and to say what they do. So it'll be easier to talk straight. So what LLM do is that they're kind of neural networks that are trained with all that. You remember all the parameters we talked, the billions of parameters? This is what they tune to train themselves on very, very vast amount of data. You could say OpenAI model has been trained on the internet. It's a little bit exaggerating, but it's read a lot of it. Okay. What they do with it, what the model does, is that it calculates relationship between words and sentences and paragraphs and chapters, etc., to figure out if you put 3 words together, what is likely to be the next one. So, for example, if you say the sky is, ChatGPT is going to look in its big training data and say, I see the context around the sky is, and I think in the context that I know of, the most probable answer would be blue or clear or cloudy or falling, making up the sentence, the sky is blue, clear, cloudy, or falling. Not having an opinion about whether the sky is blue or not. It's just calculating the most probable word there is blue or clear, etc. Okay, it's important to understand it's a calculation, it's not an opinion. All right, it's a calculation on what it has seen before. So why is it game changing? Well, the first thing that's game changing is it has such a big data training and out of the box knowledge, it barely needs any training. Okay, so you could use ChatGPT out of the box with zero setup. It's a simple API call. Everybody's tried it. We've integrated API of ChatGPT in our product. Everybody has at this stage. Okay, it seems like a magical turn on AI and it works, which is very contrary to what AI used to be before. AI used to be associated with deployment project, training data, testing, tuning, and then retuning and retesting once it's in production. ChatGPT seems to give a magical answer to all that, saying, no, you just plug into our API and it'll work, okay? So this zero setup is a very, very high promise. It's probably part of the hype cycle there, the peak of it, okay? But it's very promising for that. It's also natively multilingual. It's not a small thing, okay? It can understand, autocomplete, and translate from many different languages. I can't remember, it's 35, 52. I read it yesterday, and I can't remember the number, but it's a lot of languages. And not only is it really ready to use, but now it's becoming tunable, which is really, really interesting, which is something all our companies are working on, is how can we tune it to be better adapted to our specific customer model? And you can do that in different ways by prompt engineering. Prompt engineering is reformulating the question you ask ChatGPT to help get a better answer, okay? Model tuning is a little bit different. It's pre-tuning it so that you only need to ask a small question, it will give you the right answer. And then there's the use of plugins that was recently released by ChatGPT, which enables you to really plug in additional data source to the one it was trained on. So all this is very promising. It's really something we are all looking at. But there's something we need to understand as well. Okay, so ChatGPT, to remember everybody, ChatGPT is a chatbot application, and it's a very eager chatbot. Okay, it's based on the GPT 3, 3.5, GPT 4 model, and soon 5. Okay, it's based on that. It is very eager to help. It will always answer your question, rightly or wrongly. Okay, and for example, if you ask ChatGPT, there's two examples that are a little bit humoristic, but they are true nevertheless. Okay, you ask ChatGPT to write a one-paragraph story about summer. It's going to do a brilliant job at it. It's going to look into its training data and say, okay, I think I understand the context. It's a story. It's one paragraph. It's about summer. It calculates stuff that looks right to it. Okay, and generates what could be a beautiful story in one paragraph about summer. That's really good. The creativity side, you just up the temperature to the max and it's going to do beautiful stuff. Okay, it's not so good when it's a technical question about something very specific. It may not have been trained on. So for example, I used to have a very old car, an old Mercedes, where the battery is in the boot of the car. Okay, if you ask ChatGPT how to change your battery, it's going to come up with a beautiful answer. It really is beautiful. It tells you about the security precaution you need to take, make sure to turn off the engine, open your engine compartment and take out the battery. But there's no battery there, okay? It's wrong. It looks beautiful. It looks really true. It looks nice, but it looks safe, but it's untrue, okay? ChatGPT doesn't know the battery in my bloody car is in the boot, all right? Okay, so it doesn't do everything, okay? And it doesn't do everything because if you can consider ChatGPT as an autocomplete on steroids, okay? An autocomplete on steroids, what does that mean? That means that it will complete any sentence you start, like a very eager chatbot that I described earlier on. It will always answer your question, all right? But the way it does that is that it serves statistically plausible answers. So for example, the word it adds at the end of your sentence are statistically plausible. They don't have to be right or wrong. Right or wrong does not exist for ChatGPT. It has to be plausible statistically. And because it's plausible statistically, the answer will look human, they will feel human. So in that way, using ChatGPT in chatbot, I think is going to provide actually a better customer satisfaction. People will feel they are taken care of. The answer is nice, nicely put together, elegantly, with the right tone and with the right details, etc. It's really, I think it's going to work well for self-service, okay? in terms of satisfaction, it's going to work well, immediate satisfaction. But are these answers correct? No, not always. And that's because ChatGPT doesn't mind correctness or not. It has to be plausible statistically. Okay, the numbers have to say it looks right. It doesn't have to be right. All right. So, nevertheless, despite these challenges ahead in ChatGPT and general AI models, AI will become part of QA in all our contact centers. Okay? It will play a role at some stage in everybody's life, including quality assurance in contact centers. So, as I said before, ChatGPT is a very simple API to connect with. We've connected it with our own product to do trials and tests and all this stuff. Okay, so what does it do well? It does summarization very well, and I think everybody's going to use it in their own product to do summarization. It does keyword detection quite well. It summarizes a conversation, typical keywords. It is good, a good take, I think, but what it does. We've tried it for recommendation, like recommendation, for example, for coaching, for weakness detected in a conversation. There is very creative. It really creates a very verbose answer on what the agent should do, etc. But it's not always right. It didn't hit the mark for us so far. It does good voice transcription. Okay, it's good at that, and it's good at translation. It's multilingual natively, so it's really good for that. Okay, but what we're really interested in is auto scoring. Okay, how good would it be in scoring conversation in a QA practice for a contact center? So this, it needs a bit of work. Okay, it needs a bit more work, but it's worth the work. But it does need a little bit more. A good question is, what impact will it have on QA? Okay, and again, there we could talk about ChatGPT, but it also applies to many different AI models. All right. The first thing it will do is, by crunching some of the analysis, it will make the manual scoring faster. Okay, your QA evaluator will have less to digest. There's a summary of the conversation there. They will see right away what it's about. They may see some insights on what ChatGPT or AI models find in the conversation. So it will make it easier for them to decide on how to score the conversation faster, but that will let them more time to provide the real value in the QA, which is the feedback to the agent. The score is good for reports. Feedbacks are important for agents. And don't forget, we're all here to try and develop our agents, make them work better, but above all, we're here to make them stay with us. Okay? The retention in the contact center is probably one of the #1 challenges everybody has. The quality of the feedback your QA evaluator gives to your agent is probably the most important part of the QA process that you want the agent to engage with. Okay? So if AI and ChatGPT give more time to the evaluator to give those better feedback, that's great news. It's really important for the business. Another thing is AI will help you cover to some level your compliance risk. It will detect potential failure, potential risk very well in most of their conversations, enabling you to actually deep dive on these to make sure you're not exposed to any regulatory fine or stuff like that. Another impact ChatGPT will have on QA, and this time I'm really talking about ChatGPT and LLMs as opposed to generic AI, because they are generative. Bots are going to become more verbose, more creative, more human in the way they interact, but also more creative. Okay, you know the word hallucination. Hallucination is when ChatGPT comes up with an answer but looks like a fact, but is not a fact. It made it up, and it made it up because by calculating probability, if you want, of the next word, it comes up with a very plausible answer, but it's actually not correct. Okay, and sometimes not a fact. So bots are going to become more humanized, more conversational, but also more prone to error in that way. And because they will become more prone to error, they need more QA. All right, so that's an impact on QA, is that you need to QA the bots soon. Okay. Another impact, which probably needs to be thought of a little bit more, is that bots are going to deflect more and more calls away from agents, especially starting with the low-skill interactions, which are simple operations that the robots can do as well as any agent, and let them do it. Okay, what that means is that the interactions with customers will become more elaborate. Okay, so the customers will talk to agents for more complex issues, more sensitive, more difficult stuff. Okay, what that means is the agents will need to be able to handle those more complex calls, but also your QA evaluators we need to be able to evaluate those more complex situations. And that may require some upskilling on the QA team as well. It's not just about the branded greeting. It's about, did you understand what that was about? Okay, so these are the operational impact we can foresee in general in the QA world. Okay, now a good question is, what do we do next? Okay, so how do we introduce QA automation? What do we do, etc.? So we're going to look at various aspects of AI, how it can help in more details in the contact center. So we think AI can help in 3 areas. It can help in regulatory compliance. So for example, was a GDPR statement said? If it's not said, it's a fail. You can deep dive on that. Were the TNCs quoted to the customer while you were closing the deal on the phone? That's important, because if you didn't quote the TNCs, you may not be able to recognize the revenue. So these are little things that are really important. Was the ID verification done for business compliance or regulatory compliance? AI can help in business compliance with branded greetings, was that said correctly or not, or did the agent use the right pre-canned response to that customer request, etc. It can test all these things pretty well. It can also audit some aspect of the communication handling by the agents, such as tone of language, and are there any grammar mistakes, any spelling mistakes? Is the agent expressing empathy? Is it expressing empathy at the right time, etc.? We can tune AI to do those things pretty well, but it cannot do everything. Okay, so AI won't detect problems, or it won't be able to audit actions that are made off platform. If your agents need to handle a query by doing an operation in a third-party platform, and we all know our contact centers are riddled with screens and different platforms that have not integrated, and that's the real world, and it still will be for quite some time. So anything off platform, AI won't know about it. It won't be able to control it. Another thing AI is not that good at is complex troubleshooting procedure. You saw the example of my changing my battery in my car. That's simple enough. It got that wrong, but it can become very complicated to go through the steps of each troubleshooting things and do the right thing. AI is not always that good at that. What AI is often not good at is something that agents themselves sometimes struggle with, is to understand exactly what is the problem my customer is communicating around. So the customer is calling you for something that looks simple. My order wasn't delivered. No, my order hasn't arrived yet. That's a simple problem. But are they complaining that it hasn't arrived? Or are they complaining that they can't track it? Because maybe we always said it wouldn't be delivered at this date. We said in 3 days. And the customer is calling before the delivery. They're not calling because it's not arrived. They're calling because they can't track it. That's a different problem. So that's a very simple example of what the customer says is not always the problem they have. And the agent's training is about understanding the context, taking a step back, asking the customer, did you do that? And then understanding what the problem is. AI is not always great at that, to be honest. Another thing that AI may not be able to do is, for example, if you have an objection guideline or handling guideline, if customer says it's too expensive, or I don't like your service, or I was lied to, whatever objections you can have, agents are trained to handle them along a big book of guidelines that says if a customer says that, make sure not to say sorry, or make sure to say sorry, depending on the cases. AI won't be good at that because it doesn't know your book. Okay, so as we go into fine-tuning, model tuning, etc., it'll get better at that. But today it's a little bit poor on this. Okay. The last sentence, I won't elaborate too much on that because I have a full slide on it a bit later. What AI is not is it's not a team lead. It's not a coach. It's not a friend. Okay. It's just a tool you're going to use. It's not a person like that. It sounds very small. We're going to go back to it in a second. But if you take a step back from that, and if you look at all that the AI can do and some of what it cannot do, it's good to understand how you can use it actually in your contact center. So we made a little drawing. It's not a great drawing. It's not very artistic, but it's trying to explain 2 things. It tries to say that AI can automate some things across all the conversation. So if you look at the horizontal scale, which is the number of conversations, Auto QA will cover all those conversations, but it won't cover everything on all these conversations. It won't cover the whole deep dive that you would do manually. But it's okay, because what it does, it raises alarm bells for you to do the deep dive where it should be. And that manual QA will only address 2, 3, 5% of your conversation. but it will do the deep dive on 100%. So what that shows is that these are complementary. It's not one or the other. They're both wrong. One is right on everything it does, but only does it on a percentage, okay? The rest is not right on everything. It doesn't look at everything, but looks at all the conversation. So they are very complementary. And it's about building your skill set and your procedure and your systems so that you can benefit from both of those in a very complementary way. Now, if you remember, the auto QA bit will rate everything you give it. It will give a rating, okay? But it's a machine, okay? And when I said early on, it's a machine, it's not your friend, it's not your coach, it's not your manager, your QA evaluator, it's just a tool. And this is what you need to keep in mind. AI is only a tool. Your agents need to know they're not working for the AI. You're not making the decision based on just what the AI thinks. The AI is not making the decision, you are. AI is a tool you use as a coach. You use that as a team lead. You use that as a QA manager for any purpose, but you use that as a human to help other humans, whether they are customers or whether they are agents. And you have to be very careful on that. And for that reason, that gives me a good transition to hand over to Derek, who's going to talk about why this human versus machine thing creates such much anxiety among society, and what is regulation going to do about this. So Derek, I'm going to hand over to you and let you talk us through that. Thank you, everybody.
That's great. Thanks for that, Emmanuel. Yeah, look, I suppose law always is chasing technology, and that's been the pattern over the years. In this case, as we say, we see ChatGPT as a step change in the deployment and the effectiveness of AI, but it's been around for some time. And bodies like the European Union have been looking at AI and its potential impact. What they're doing is it's the first of its kind AI regulation, the AI Act. It's been accelerated now because of what's been happening out in the marketplace, and it has there was a vote recently in the European Union to pass it to the next stage. It's still going to be a while before it hits the streets. It's a risk-based approach to regulating. It specifies the requirements not just for developers but also for people who are deploying. So a little bit like GDPR, you've got processors and you've got controllers. And it categorizes it into levels of risk. So unacceptable risk, high risk, limited risk, or minimal or no risk. The US and other jurisdictions are looking very closely at this. If we move forward, Emmanuel. Thank you. So, very high profile conversations in the US Senate there last week, and Sam Altman saying, there needs to be a new agency set up. It needs to create safety standards. Interesting, you use the word safety. Safety standards for AI models, including evaluations of their dangerous capabilities, and also requiring independent audits. So not leaving it to the technologists or the deployers to actually perform the audits. So really interesting time for what's happening. But we can expect that as businesses, if we deploy AI, we're going to have to take account of some of these, and probably better to preempt them than to wait for them. Next slide. So how do you prepare for this significant step change and probably rapid deployment of AI in your contact center? So what the steps do you need to go through to become an AI-ready contact center? I think the starting point is you need a strategic vision, right? So you need to know where you're going to apply this and how you're going to apply it. In order to develop your strategic vision, you need to educate yourselves on, what it's capable of. And hopefully, Emmanuel has given you a few pointers there to look at. There's a cultural shift required, right? So, that dependency, the danger of a dependency on the outcomes from AI and the negative impacts it can have either on our brand or on our people, and also the technical transformation. So what does deploying an AI project look like? I think it's going to be, as Emmanuel pointed out, this out-of-the-box capability that generative AI has sort of suggests that it's going to be easier to deploy than traditional AI projects and probably lower cost, right? But our advice to you is, look, find the right tools. So make sure you have the tool that is fit for purpose and also tuned to your requirements. You need to manage your brand, so you need a very careful sort of deployment that, as the manual says, it's giving results and outcomes to customers, your customers, that they want, rather than giving plausible outcomes. And establishing new roles and workflows. So there will be, new oversight roles. There will be new managerial roles. There will be new technical roles. There will be new analyst roles that will flow from this deployment. Next slide. Just to raise a few red flags, right, at this early stage, public versus private information were a couple of high-profile news items that came out over the last 4 weeks or so, where Samsung staff were actually putting commercially sensitive information through public LLMs and to get responses. That information stays there. So, this public versus private information proposition needs to be looked at very closely. We're looking at how we can ring fence the tool or the engine so that actually we can control the data that goes in and out. AI hallucinations. So again, that idea that the answer will look very plausible, but maybe very misleading, maybe biased, or maybe factually incorrect, right? Using the wrong tool for the job. So using general tools is probably not going to get the job done for you. The experimentation that we've been doing in Scorebuddy Labs, where we take data sets and run it against these LLMs, where they have not been finely tuned, we're getting some really interesting and odd responses, right? So, I think the tunes will need to be finessed, they will need to be tuned, and they will need to be sensitized in order to make to generate the outcomes that you as customer facing teams are looking for. And it's the old story: garbage in, garbage out. So what impact will we have? Is this disruptive technology going to have on customers? We're all customers in the room, and so you can anticipate there will be higher levels of self-service. So it's going to be more plausible, more effective, more human-like in the way it treats those queries coming in from customers. And there's a whole generation out there who are very comfortable using chatbots, very comfortable using text as the primary channel for communications. And so you can see that there's going to be an elevation in the number of self-service interactions that happen. We still anticipate that the total number of interactions is going to continue to grow. So it won't reduce the total number of interactions. It's just going to increase the amount of self-service. Dynamic content on web pages, where as I click through the web page or enter my information, it's finding and dynamically changing the content on the web page for me. Intuitive chatbots, good to think of them in terms of virtual agents, because they still need evaluation over time, and they also need, so I suppose, oversight so that they don't go off on tangents. And then real-time agent prompting. So the idea that there's an assistant, a virtual assistant running in the background in real time and prompting the agent with information, knowledge, suggestions to close out, as Emmanuel pointed to, probably more complex interactions. Next slide. So the conclusions, guys, generative AI is transformative. It has already arrived. We weren't talking about this in the same way we are now, pre-November last, right? So it just shows the speed at which it has hit the psyche, and it will become mainstream. So there's wrinkles at the moment, there's boundaries, there's hundreds, thousands of companies working to iron out those wrinkles and find ways of deploying this in meaningful and valuable ways. So just in summary, in looking at this AI trend, as I say, it's been back there since 1956, and we're just seeing that step function with generative AI. Customer contact center interactions will continue to rise, so will self-service rates. ChatGPT will take time to deliver and on its promises. LLM tools trained on generic data may not cut it, and regulation is coming. So vendors and companies and organizations that use AI are going to have to be aware of that, right, and comply. Generative AI will make bot auditing and governance a key component of QA. So naturally, we were very introspective on this. We said, well, okay, how's this going to affect the QA process and workflows? And we see it as just another channel, right? They're virtual agents, but they need to be audited. So agent conversations, we guess, will become much more complex, requiring upskilling and more knowledge support. AI will automate more and more aspects of the agent QA process, but QA evaluators remain for manual deep dive and AI calibration. One of the biggest sort of negative outcomes that we potentially see is that the AI, that the organizations that employ AI to do deep scoring on agents and deliver that to the agents are going to become very disenchanted where they see the gaps, right? Where they see the misleading scoring of a conversation, and will disengage then with the process and begin to not trust the technology. And we think that obviously is going to have a very, very negative effect on customer outcomes and customer sentiment. So guys, I think that's really where we're getting close to the end. We got a set of recommendations. Continue to route transactional and computational chat tasks to chatbots and reserve the more complex requests for human agents. Leverage its awesome capacity to provide strong support to help your agents manage those high stakes interactions. And look at tailored auto scoring solutions that are trained for your sector and specifically your business needs, so that you can start increasing the level of automation right across all the channels, including the automated channels, to maintain that oversight and that data gathering process as we move into this exciting space. Okay, so look, I'm going to open it to the floor. Emmanuel and I are available to take any questions and any thoughts or any commentary, actually. Be really interested in what your views are. This is an evolving story.
Okay, we have a
any questions?
Yes. So where countries have lower regulations around AI, won't we just see jobs move to these countries?
Do you want to answer that, Derek? Or?
Yeah, no, look, I think regulation in this scenario and in this context is actually going to be a good thing. Again, we look at this hopefully through your eyes. We're looking at the brand and we're looking at how is that impacting the customer base, and will customers to continue to purchase from badly delivered customer service? And we all know that the stats show that that's not the case. So regardless of the lack of regulation in certain territories, that's only going to lead to bad behaviors and bad outcomes. So my advice would be we embrace the regulation, and that should lead to better outcomes all around.
Yeah, and I would add to that even that regulation is now becoming, I would say, world aware, and we see that in the latest Meta case against the European Commission and the big fine that were imposed that they will challenge, of course. What regulation does is that it makes it actually harder to do business from a third-party country that has not embraced that regulation. So I think, as Derek said, we need to embrace those regulation moves. We are all in industries. We don't look for more regulation, but we have to embrace it. But I think it will actually develop more of the business in countries that adopt that regulation than countries that don't. So that's the beneficial aspect of embracing regulation when it comes.
Okay, and let's see. Yeah, that's it. Okay, so what are TNCs, GDPR, and IDV?
Okay.
The abbreviations.
So good one. I think GDPR, most people would know it's a General Data Protection Regulation in Europe, which mirrors some equivalent in the US as well. And it's all about making sure people are in control of their own data, their personal data, and that companies cannot use that data for purpose other than what they declared to their clients while doing business with them. Okay, so in short, that's what it is. IDV is ID verification, so it means when you communicate when an agent communicates with a customer and discloses personal aspects of its account. So, for example, its credit limit, loyalty points, whatever that is to do with the customer's account that could be considered as personal. There's an ID verification rule that forces the agent to first check a few things. Are you the right customer? Are you the right person? So it could be your mother's maiden name, it could be your dog's name, your address, your phone number, it could be anything. So ID verification is about making sure the agent asks the verification questions before disclosing any personal information. And the TNCs is just the terms and condition of for example, you buy an insurance on the phone. The guy who sells you the insurance needs to tell you what are the terms and conditions. He needs to tell you that if you were already sick before signing on, the insurance won't work. He needs to tell you that if you had 3 car accidents in the last year, the insurance will be void. It needs to tell you all the things, because if he closes the deal with you, sells you the insurance without disclosing those terms, the deal is void. The revenue cannot be recognized. You haven't made a deal. So this is business compliance and sometimes regulatory compliance that forces you to disclose some level of T&Cs to a customer when you engage with them. Did I explain it correctly, Mariana? Did you understand it?
Yes, I did. Okay,
Perfect.
I think we have another one. So let's see. Okay, so she thanked you for explaining. It was just it.
You're welcome.
And well, okay, since we do not have any other questions, I want to thank you, Emmanuel and Derek, for taking your time and preparing this amazing content to all of us. We learned a lot from you, and thank you everyone for joining the webinar. And just a quick reminder that after this webinar, after we finish this webinar, we have a quick survey for all the attendants, just to make sure, just to collect your feedback and see what you think about the webinar and what should be the next webinar. So please take 5 minutes of your time to respond to this quick survey. Okay, thank you everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening.